Hello, hello. Welcome back to A Course in Miracles. I'm Tomas Garza, and thank you all for joining me wherever you have clicked this link, found this channel, or from Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. Yeah, there's a couple different ways you can see this material and access this material. So I hope that you're enjoying these videos. If you're following along with me here in the workbook for students, or if this is something that you've done before, if you are at a different place in the workbook, or if you've never done it before and you're considering it, well, welcome. You'll discover that spirituality has a few themes, doesn't it, that run throughout all world traditions. They're universal. So when we're looking at something as meaningful and as important as spirituality in the lives of all of us, that's something to look for. Yeah, I'm inspired to say a few words about this, and then we'll get into the day's lesson here. Universality is something that you should absolutely be looking for in a spiritual practice, in a spiritual tradition. It should apply to every living thing. And if you want to just say to all human beings, okay, it should apply to everyone. Across the board, no matter what part of the world someone lives in, no matter what part of the world someone was born in and raised in, no matter what their culture, no matter what their culture's spiritual or religious backdrop, the practice should apply to everyone equally. It should reflect the idea that there is just one. It should reflect the statement that God is. In other words, it should apply across the board. Spirituality is really, really simple. That's a theme that runs through it. And I've mentioned a number of these simple items here on this series of videos. It's disarmingly simple, isn't it? It's like we're looking for it to be more complicated than it is. That's what happens when we're conditioned to think that this is what we are, you know, that we're a body, that we're a human being. If you've watched some of these videos, you've heard me say that. It's what we think we are. You're not a body. I didn't make that up, by the way. It's right here in A Course in Miracles. And if you look around and think about it, it's in other world traditions too. Don't believe me? Look around. Do your own examination. As long as it's honest. Spirituality is so disarmingly simple that it's actually kind of funny sometimes. And maybe you see the humor in this, maybe you don't, but I'll just say the humor in it is how we continue to get in our own way. I mean, it's funny, not funny, right? It's not funny because it's painful and it perpetuates suffering. It encourages it and perpetuates it. And we spin round and round and round, world without end, until it ends. Thank God. But that doesn't happen until you recognize the futility of this round and round and round and round. Identify with the ego in one form or another. Shift, change, identify with the ego in one form or another. That's what we're doing. That's what we're all doing here in the world until we make a different decision. So what's simple about spirituality? It's literal. Only truth is true. What else? It's quite literally true. And the practice of it is disarmingly simple. We have invented as human beings a number of different rituals, some of them quite elaborate, and quite honestly, some of them are elaborately beautiful. There are beautiful hymns, there are beautiful sadhanas in Buddhism, there are beautiful prayers, there are elaborate visual components to certain rituals, there are elaborate sonic components to certain rituals. It's quite varied, isn't it? There are many elaborate artistic components to a lot of rituals. Think about world spirituality here. All boils down to the present moment. And are we choosing love or fear? Are we choosing God or the ego? That's where the action is. No action, no results. Right? We're always making a choice. Whether you think you have a choice or not, you do have a choice. You could choose to think you don't have a choice. That's a choice. You could choose to run and hide. That's a choice. You could choose to deny that any of this is true. That's a choice. You could choose to think that people like me that talk about A Course in Miracles and related traditions, you could think we're a bunch of nutcases. It's a choice. You could run and hide. Again, that's a choice. We've all done it from time to time. Yeah. We get scared. We're conditioned to be afraid. So we get scared of the light, our own awakening. If that sounds harsh, so be it. It's pretty directly true. Therefore, what we have in A Course in Miracles, by design, quite by design, and what we have in other world traditions looks like a gradual process, no matter what tradition you are, or if you're mixing and matching, which is perfectly cool. And it's kind of fun. In fact, A Course in Miracles might be just one of many tools that you employ on your path. So that's entirely possible. But whatever that looks like, we're given, almost all of us, a gradual program to train our mind, to attenuate ourselves to these disarmingly simple truths that naturally, quite naturally, the ego resists and denies. Maybe at first in a whisper, this little voice on your shoulder that says something nice and sexy and persuading to you to keep you distracted. And later on, as you start to ignore that voice, shouts, right? Trying to clobber you. Yeah. Resistance takes a lot of forms. What we do in the present moment is just recognize it and let it go. I've said in a number of these videos, especially recently, in fact, that life is nothing other than a living, breathing, walking meditation. And these workbook ideas can serve as that anchor. They can serve as the object of meditation, where it might be the breath in seated meditation practice. It might be the instructions of a guide or a teacher. It might be sound like a mantra or singing bowls or whatever that might look like. It's disarmingly simple. So let's disarm ourselves, shall we? When you do that, you're actually more powerful than you can possibly imagine. It's okay if you don't believe me. I invite you to experience it for yourself. Yeah, because when you do, if you've done it, you'll know what I'm saying, right? It's pretty cool. Just leave it at that. And it's cool in a different sort of way than being cool in the world, being cool for the camera, being cool for your Facebook or Instagram feed, being cool because you look cool. No, it's cool in a different way. As in constantly joyful, uplifting, and powerful. Real power. Not this temporal shit that doesn't last. So let's talk for a minute or two here about the idea that we're covering here in the workbook. That's lesson 256 here in the workbook for students. God is the only goal I have today. God is the only goal I have today. Therefore, my ultimate goal is not to go to the gym at 10:30 this morning, which I'm going to do, of course, because I want to. And it's healthy, and it's fun. I'm talking ultimate goal. God is the only goal I have today. When we allow ourselves to accept this idea, it's quite clear that there's one way to that. No matter what your outward tradition looks like, it's forgiveness. We're talking specifically about A Course in Miracles. And as you may know, the practice of forgiveness, the idea of forgiveness is emphasized tremendously. It's emphasized tremendously as the way to God. Now, the world is a complete illusion. It doesn't appear that way to us, but with spiritual practice, with our process, however lengthy that may be, or however short, we come to realize that, yeah, everything these people are saying is true. Everything Jesus is saying is true. Everything Buddha is saying is true. The world is, in fact, an illusion. So we're surrounded by illusions. The physical body is an illusion. This computer is an illusion. Some were really able to see and to understand really quickly that it's an illusion. Money is an illusion. It's an idea, right? Say you have $10,000 in a bank account, for example. Do you really have 10,000 bills or coins in there? No, it's an idea. It's, well, nothing. Same with everything in the world. Same thing. So in a world of illusions, there's one illusion that leads us to the truth, and that is forgiveness. Why is that still an illusion? Well, in truth, who we are is one with God. In other words, there's nothing to forgive. You were created in the image of God. That simply means you're the extension of God. So in reality, in truth, there's nothing that needs fixing, which should be deeply comforting, maybe surprising, yeah, but deeply comforting, because you are not broken in reality. Not in any way. And that is true and has always been true, despite everything that your physical senses may show you, despite any aches and pains you may be experiencing in the physical body, despite any horrific breakups that you may have had, divorces, heartbreaks, failures in business, bankruptcy, people dissing you, flipping you off on the freeway, all of that. Not a single one of us is broken in truth. So forgiveness is said here in this thought system to be an illusion. However, it's the one illusion that leads us home, so to speak. You've never left home, by the way. We're just waking up to that fact. It's the one illusion that leads to the truth. Therefore, it is our practice. And lesson 256 stands as a really beautiful, a powerful, and a poignant statement, a restatement of your goal. It's why we're doing all this, because we want the peace of God. The way to that is not through anything that our parents taught us necessarily, unless your parents taught spirituality. In that case, consider yourself among a scant minority, right? Very small. Yeah. Most of us have been conditioned with society's values of consumeristic greed and status and all that fun stuff. Nothing against a big fat pile of money. But yeah, that's not any of our ultimate goal when we really think about it. It's the peace of God. So how does one attain that? Well, it's ours, but for the choosing. We simply have to allow that. That's training our mind to allow that. This is what spiritual practice is. People have applied the term, and people that I've worked with, it's kind of funny, kind of true, but people have said, well, this is mind control. Well, of course it is. If your mind's out of control, if you really want the peace of God, which you all do deep down, what's got to happen? If your mind's out of whack, got to bring it into whack, so to speak. If you're racing out of control, that's not the way to peace. You know that. You know that. It's simply a matter of allowing truth to be as it is. It requires us to put some effort into it. This does not mean that you have to run off and join a monastery. Nothing like that. It doesn't mean that you have to practice ideas in the workbook diligently, exactly as the workbook suggests. But it does mean that you got to put some effort into it. Whatever that looks like, whatever you're able to do, at some point on the path, that becomes a priority. And I'll tell you what, when it becomes a priority, life really does show up differently. It's a very famous Dr. Wayne Dyer quote that change the things you look at and the things you look at change. You've probably heard that dozens and dozens of times. That's the way it works. Yeah, well, he was clearly on to something there, right? You have a different experience when you choose love. Choose it once, it's not enough, right? It's a start, but you've got to choose it again and again and again and again. When that becomes habit, when the practice of forgiveness becomes habit, you have a very different experience. Why? You see things differently because you've made the choice to see them differently. You've set God, love, right? Your own awakening as the goal, the peace of God, which is deep down what we're all looking for. We can call it by any other name, still that deep down. Because we all know, we know, trust your own knowing, will you? Right? Honestly, we all know that's what we want because only that is lasting. And A Course in Miracles confirms that for us. Only that exists. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. Have a great day, everybody.